This video contains flashing lights and colors. Hey everyone, it's Peter from Theme Park Crazy, and we are starting off today's video right here at Spirit Halloween in Ansonia, Connecticut.
Yes, 'tis the season for Spirit Halloween. You've gotta love it here. You can get all sorts of outfits, as well as makeup, props, and accessories to make the ultimate Halloween costume. And of course, you can't have Spirit Halloween without some awesome animatronics on display. Seriously, these figures are absolutely worth taking a look at, and I definitely recommend stopping by a store near you this Halloween season. This is not sponsored by Spirit, by the way. But aside from just the animatronics, I also love checking out the wide display of masks and hats they have to offer.
And that brings us to the subject of today's video, the Cat in the Hat.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at the history and downfall of the deteriorating Cat in the Hat ride at the Universal Orlando Resort's Islands of Adventure. But how could a theme park praise for having some of the world's top-tier attractions house such a decaying disaster? Let's dive into the terrifying failure of the Cat in the Hat Dark Ride right here on Theme Park Crazy. First published in 1957, the story of the Cat in the Hat by Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, is a classic. Since the ride's plot mirrors the book, it's important that we do a quick run-through of the story for those unaware of it and to understand the ride's context. If you already know the story by heart, you can skip to the next chapter, and I've included a timestamp in the description. The plot involves a young boy and his sister being stuck inside on a rainy day while their mother is away. The boy is never given a name, by the way, so we'll just refer to him as John Doe. Suddenly, the titular Cat in the Hat enters the house uninvited, which is a misdemeanor-level offense in most jurisdictions. The cat's stated intention is to teach the kids that they can still have fun on a rainy day, but things go south quickly. The kid's pet goldfish expresses immense disapproval at the situation. In response, the cat demonstrates reckless endangerment for the fish's safety by balancing his bowl on top of an umbrella. He continues to precariously balance more and more household items while standing on a ball until he eventually falls off. It's said that he landed on his head, and he no doubt received at least a grade 1 concussion in the process. The fish scolds the cat and tells him to leave, but the cat refuses. Instead, he brings in a giant box holding two juvenile vandalists named Thing 1 and Thing 2. These two proceed to cause substantive property damage by flying kites in the house and knocking over furniture. After they're both captured by John Doe in a giant net, the cat decides to leave, but just when it looks like the kids have to deal with the damage, the cat returns with a whimsical cleaning machine and repairs everything. He manages to cover his tracks and escape the residence before the kid's mother comes home. She asks them what they did, and the book finally ends by asking the reader if the kids should tell their mother about what happened, saying, "What would you do if your mother asked you?" You as the reader are left with many questions. Should you give a sworn deposition, invoke the Fifth Amendment, request legal counsel, or risk committing perjury by omission? In all seriousness, this is a classic childhood story, and it's undoubtedly the most popular story by Dr. Seuss, alongside How the Grinch Stole Christmas, of course. Even decades after publication, Seuss's works have remained incredibly popular. This endearing popularity led the creative department at Universal Studios to plan an entire themed land for a new upcoming theme park in Orlando. Universal Studios Florida had recently opened, and now they were looking for a second gate. Originally named Cartoon World, this planned park would have featured several rides and attractions themed to cartoon properties. These included DC Comics, Looney Tunes, and Dr. Seuss. However, since Warner Brothers and Universal couldn't agree on a royalty percentage for theme park rides, the original concept for Cartoon World was scrapped in 1993. Around that time, Sid Sheinberg, head of Universal's parent company MCA, reportedly told Warner Brothers executives, quote, "We don't need your characters." It would be 6 whole years before Universal Orlando's second gate finally came into fruition. Once again, designers expressed interest in opening Dr. Seuss-themed attractions. Initially, Seuss's widow Audrey was hesitant, saying her husband did not like theme parks. Most likely, he didn't feel like their commercial nature fit his works. However, Geisel was later convinced by Seuss's publisher Random House to license out her late husband's characters to Universal. This, and other licensing deals, led to a brand new theme park named Islands of Adventure. By and large, this park was targeted towards older audiences, with more thrilling attractions like the Incredible Hulk and Dueling Dragons roller coasters. But in the interest of having something for everybody, there was still a land targeted towards families with young children, Seuss Landing. This land was bright, colorful, and a true engineering challenge to build. Islands of Adventure Vice President of Designs and Creative Development Mark Woodbury stated the following about Seuss Landing. Our greatest challenge in building Seuss was really overcoming the propensity for engineers and builders to build everything at right angles and at 90 degrees. There's not a straight line in the entire 12 acres of Seuss Landing. To create the whimsical environments, a variant of styrofoam was used as it's incredibly easy to sculpt. Since styrofoam is insanely flammable though, the carvings were covered in a thin coating of plasticized concrete and fabric mesh. This provides a weatherproof coating and an easy painting surface, according to theme park designer Robert Rose' Making Dreams Come True blog. As for the area's attractions, it was home to several rides, including the Carousel, the One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish ride, and the Star Attraction, a dark ride named and themed to the Cat in the Hat. The ride entrance prominently features a massive replica of the cat's iconic hat, which guests pass under to enter the queue area. The queue is decked out with sculpted landscapes resembling those in Seuss's book, and passages from the Cat in the Hat are projected onto the walls. Storm clouds decorate the ceiling above, and eventually, guests enter the home of John Doe and Sally. Inside, passengers board quirky couch-shaped ride vehicles with 2 rows and lap bars to pull down. The ride starts off with the mother, who we'll call Jane Doe, leaving the house with a grocery list. Interestingly enough, and as an aside, there are a couple of Easter eggs on this list. There are eggs and ham, a reference to green eggs and ham, as well as bread and butter, a reference to the Butter Battle book. Right away, you'll notice the warped perspective of each room and the somewhat muted color scheme. But all of this changes once the cat barges in through the front door. And here is where the first problem with this ride lies. The animatronics are arguably creepy as hell. This animatronic of Cat has sunken eyes deep in his face. This gives them a darker, artificial appearance. He looks like an intruder with a large latex mask on, like a burglar or murderer is hiding behind the cat's appearance. Next up, you can see the fish on the left. His bowl does have an interesting double layer effect, where water can sit inside the walls of the bowl without touching the animatronic, but still, his movements are extremely jerky and limited. Next is the scene where the cat tries balancing the household items. This animatronic looks even scarier to some than the first one. Not only are his eyes even further sunken into his face, but his mouth barely moves. Again, it looks like a man in a latex mask instead of the character being brought to life. Moving on, you'll see a crude CG animation of the cat falling off the ball like he does in the book. It's cheap and hasn't aged well, but it's still better than AI. Following this is the fish again with more erratic movements, and the introduction of Thing 1 and Thing 2. This part often startles many guests, as 2 robotic moving figures on sticks suddenly sprint out of the box. In all honesty, this part actually startled me the first time I wrote it, and I think it's because when they first exit the box, it looks like they're running towards you with their limbs flailing. Their movements just look so unnatural, and their appearances are pretty disheveled too, even when the ride first opened. Believe it or not, this moment of the ride has become somewhat of a trend on TikTok. Users have posted their reactions to Thing 1 and Thing 2 running out of the box, often screaming in terror. Unfortunately, this has led to some people screaming on purpose throughout the ride, and just flat out being annoying for the clout. In one TikTok video, a team member actually has to get on the speaker system and say, "In the front, please stop that, it's just a ride." Beyond that, the Thing 1 and Thing 2 animatronics are often labeled as extremely creepy by riders. And once again, it has to do with a seemingly cheap and rushed design. Their hair looks matted and unkempt, like someone left a Party City wig stuffed in a box in their attic for years. Now here's where things get wild. On the ride, Thing 1 is seen deliberately smearing paint on the walls, which is absolutely vandalism. In the book, all they really did was fly kites through the house, which was certainly destructive, but here, the destruction is cranked up to 11. They rip a spring out of a chair, knock over bottles in the bathroom, throw toilet paper everywhere, try to flush the fish, and even try to crush riders with a piano. These guys are flat out psychos. And the cat? Well, he's just enjoying a bubble bath while his minions cause several $1,000s worth of damage. After Thing 1 and Thing 2's aggravated assault with a musical instrument, you enter a zone that looks like the inside of a laser tag arena. Sound effects on the wall indicate continued chaos, and streaks of blacklight paint mix with projected light patterns. Then, without warning, the ride decides it would be a good time to parody Disneyland's Alice in Wonderland ride. These walls kind of look like diamond playing cards, and the cat is swirling in a vortex at the end of the corridor. This resembles a scene from the Alice in Wonderland ride circa 2014 refurbishment. Here, the Cheshire Cat's head is seen spinning at the end of a spiraling corridor. After the fish announces that Jane Doe is almost home, guests enter another blacklight streaked area with spiraling images of various items on the ceiling. You also see Thing 1 and Thing 2 once again on sticks, and I'll tell you, this deformed looking visual of Thing 2 walking up the stairs with its legs stretched out looks totally possessed. At the end of the scene, a wall of clothing opens up to the moment from the book where John Doe captures Thing 1 and Thing 2. After viewing a completely ravaged kitchen, the cat uses his machine to start cleaning everything up. Immediately afterwards, Jane Doe returns home, and the ride ends with the same line as the book. Now as a whole, the ride itself isn't completely horrible. It follows the story well enough, there's some creative visuals, interesting set designs, and a solid soundtrack that indeed fits the zany feel of the plot. However, though the ride was praised when it first opened, many argue that it was neglected and that over time it progressively got worse. The animatronics are unquestionably outdated, with the cat's sunken eyes, the fish's dollar store toy movement, and the ratted appearance of Thing 1 and Thing 2 standing out. One can argue that the ride was made on a tight budget, and there were corners cut when designing the animatronics. That said, others will argue that the removal of a crucial ride feature severely impacted the experience for the worse. You see, originally there was a spinning feature that was much more prevalent when the ride first opened. Sure, the vehicles do still rotate, but originally you spun a lot more, and the ride's course was specifically designed with this spinning in mind. There are several scenes on this ride that, without the high spin level, feel awkward and incomplete. Take the scene with the spinning ring of household items on the ceiling. You used to spin under these rings, and the static blacklit patterns on the walls looked much more lively. Overall, the spinning feature greatly energized the original attraction, and the toning down of it is often cited as one of the biggest reasons the ride went downhill. The fast spinning was said to be toned down around 2014, and while Universal never stated the exact reason, there are two common theories. One theory suggests that the company who designed the spinning component on the ride went out of business. This meant that the park could not easily acquire the necessary parts for it. As a result, Universal had to cut back on the spinning feature and operate the ride in a supposed B mode to preserve the vehicle's integrity. Still, a more common theory suggests that guest concerns with motion sickness led to the spinning being toned down. Although the Men in Black ride at Universal Studios Florida still uses a spinning feature, it was said to be less intense than the one on Cat in the Hat. This is why only the latter attraction's feature was toned down, according to speculation. This theory does hold weight, as I did find some old message board posts criticizing the ride for its spinning. On May 12, 2001, DIS Boards user RHW wrote, "Men in Black was great. Didn't notice it spinning all that much. It is very fun. Cat in the Hat, however, has got to be the worst ride in Orlando. I thought I wouldn't make it off without being sick." That same day, Sneech wrote, "My boyfriend can go on almost any ride without feeling sick, but he felt sick after riding Cat in the Hat." However, Disney Fan Guy gave some interesting insight when he wrote, "A Universal cast member on another post mentioned that you can ask them to turn off the spinning on the Cat in the Hat. If you tend to get motion sick, I would suggest it. It really spins quite a bit." This suggests that passengers could ask in advance for the ride not to spin so much, which could be the mode it's in now. If this is true, then either too many people didn't know they could have the spinning turned off, or the manufacturer going out of business theory is accurate. That said, the ride systems manufacturer, MTS Systems Corporation, is still in business, so maybe it's a third-party company that provided the spinning mechanism. Aside from the decrease in spinning, there are said to be other problems with the ride that still persist today. For one thing, the audio is oftentimes hard to hear over the music and the sounds of the ride.
Thing 1 and Thing 2, they are capable of taking a
This means you'll often struggle to make out what the characters are saying unless you know the script in advance. Second, the animatronics and props are extremely close to the vehicles. This means that troublemaking guests will often try to reach out and touch them. Whenever someone does this, a team member will have to get on the speakers and tell them to stop. This kills the momentum of the ride and takes you out of the story, though to be fair, it's much more the fault of those guests than the ride's design. Finally, it is often reported that this ride breaks down much more than Universal's other attractions. YouTube channel Bed and Breakfast has a video that shows the ride stopping less than 5 seconds into the ride. Sure, us theme park junkies love getting a lights-on ride, and this user was excited to get one too, but still, it's not a good sign when the ride does this a lot, as is reported. When the ride finally started back up, the cat was frozen in the doorway and didn't even come inside the house. In the video, it's reported that the ride would start and stop multiple times at random. You can definitely see why this attraction has fallen from grace, and it's not the only example on YouTube. Also in this video by YouTube user Fuss, many of the animatronics failed to operate partway through, making the ride even scarier. Even worse, the lights didn't turn on and the audio was disabled.
Ooh, spooky.
This is somehow worse than moving the animatronics. Oh my god, that's terrible.
With the lights not functioning, you can easily imagine Thing 1 smearing blood on the wall here. And while Thing 2 is supposed to be watching the Cat in the Hat on the television, here he's just staring at a blank blue screen. You know, this whole ride would be worth it if he turned around and said, "They're here." The whole thing is just awkward and unsettling. This is exactly why people say the ride has been seriously neglected. Universal has built some of the greatest attractions on Earth in recent years. Unfortunately, this dark ride has undoubtedly fallen in quality. It either needs a serious refurbishment or a replacement. Still, in all honesty, I recommend giving this attraction a ride. It's fascinating to see the level of disrepair this aging ride has compared to the rest of Universal's attractions. It really sticks out like a hematoma. Like the much maligned Cat in the Hat movie, it's one of those things you can get enjoyment out of just for how bad and awkward it is. The movie has since become a stoner cult classic, and you could argue the same about this ride too. Although the cat never says the phrase "dirty hoe," so it doesn't have that. So what do you think Universal should do with this ride? Should they refurbish it to the upcoming animated Cat in the Hat film? Or should they replace it entirely with something else, like a Grinch ride? Whatever you think, feel free to comment down below. Now it's time for the comment shoutout program. This is where I take 5 random comments from my previous video and read them out. These comments come from my video on King Ka's alleged replacement. Milkwad says, "I really am going to miss this ride. I was genuinely upset when its closure and demolition was announced." Sid Noya says, "Can't believe this is how I find out that King Ka was demolished." Noah Man 4827 says, "There were only 2 days I went to Great Adventure and Ka was opened, and I got season passes regularly. It was always a maintenance issue or a little too windy." Coaster1235 says, "I visited Six Flags Great Adventure in late October 2022, and both King Ka and El Toro were out of commission then." And Wolfheart Media says, "I'm glad I faced my fears and wrote it when I did."
If you want to see your words in my next video, leave a comment down below and it may be selected. Please note though that inflammatory or spam comments will not be read.
Thank you all so much, and if you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so once again at the link in the description.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow me on social media on Instagram and Facebook, or you can check out my website at themeparkcrazy.com.
And I'm on TikTok.
This is Theme Park Crazy, and I'll see you all next time.